from Andy No. So the U.S. Attorney from New Hampshire, the office in the District of New Hampshire, puts out a press release. Manchester resident charged with the attempted murder of a federal officer. Very grim, obviously, very horrible situation. Andy No's reply here really caught my eye. The left isn't restart from the top from Andy No. This isn't getting coverage in the media, but the gun person who allegedly fired upon and tried to kill a Border Patrol agent in New Hampshire is trans. This is the third trans shooting this month. Blue Daly is the trans name for Zeke Daly. The attack is eerily similar to the neighboring Vermont deadly shooting attack on a Border Patrol agent last year by a trans suspect, Teresa Youngblood. So Andy links this story here, and it's a very strange story. We'll bring Libby in to discuss all of that. On Inauguration Day, shocking news that a U.S. Border Patrol officer had been shot dead near the Canadian border in Vermont. I think you guys probably remember this. It's been a while since we heard about it. An incident involving a now deceased foreign national was overshadowed by the coverage of Donald Trump's events in the nation's capital. But then this was interesting. The 1 week later, a 21-year-old Washington woman was charged over the deadly incident, but little has been reported about her and her deadly accomplice, a German man. The Post-Millennial can report the mysterious duo who were pulled in over at Coventry, Vermont, in the deadly shooting are leftist trans militants with alleged ties to a trans terror cell. Very bizarre stuff. We're going to bring Libby in to discuss this and so much more. She probably has some thoughts on the left retconning Christianity too, because that's quite an interesting subject. But let's see if we have Libby in here. Hi, Libby. Can you hear me?
Hey, Tate. How's it going?
How is it going? Well, I wanted to bring you in. I think everyone is probably familiar with who you are at this. I mean, you've held down this show so many times, but I guess for like the 3 people in the audience that wouldn't know who you are, you could give a quick intro of who you are, what you do.
Sure. I'm Libby Emmons. I am the editor-in-chief of both the Post-Millennial and Human Events. And I also host a podcast called The Pod Millennial, and we release every Tuesday. It's about arts and culture and whatever random stuff about my life I'm thinking about,
I love it.
essentially.
I've been listening. I love it. It's off to such a hot start. I'm really
Oh,
excited about it.
thanks.
So I love
Yeah.
it. And after everyone's fully watched this show and also reviewed the ad reads a few times, then they should head on over to Libby's show and check it out.
I appreciate that, Tate. We actually have our interview with Tim Pool drops on Tuesday.
There we
And
go.
I just recorded the monologue about that this morning. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, we love Tim Pool, so that's going to be
Yeah.
very, very excited. Well, I wanted to bring you in. This caught my eye this morning. It caught everyone's eye. It had like 3,000 likes. Andy No, in response to a press release from the U.S. Attorney in New Hampshire regarding a shooting of it was a federal officer. They say it was a federal officer was shot in New Hampshire. I don't know if you caught this story. Andy No replied saying the suspect, or as it stands right now, the suspect in this shooting in Manchester, New Hampshire, was trans.
Mm-hmm.
And he links this back to around Inauguration Day, where we saw in Vermont, obviously a neighboring state, a very similar situation where a Border Patrol agent was shot by an individual that was later identified as trans. Something's going on. It's specifically like in the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest. It seems like we're seeing this sort of specific violent kind of trans, like in huge volume, and it's not getting reported on by the media at all. I mean, the fact that I caught it from an Andy No reply to a tweet by the U.S. Attorney in New Hampshire, that kind of says it all, because I'd like to think I'm fairly on top of things politically, and obviously I
Yeah.
remember the shooting, but like, wow.
Yeah, this was a shooting last year that Andy reported on it. He had exclusive details. And in fact, you're not the only one who noticed this. The old story was going viral today, and I was checking it out and I was like, wait a second. I was looking at our analytics, as I tend to see how we're doing. And I was checking it out. I was like, why is this story trending? We published this story last year. But yes, the reason it's trending is because yesterday, and another one of our reporters, Katie Davis Court, was working on, and she also covers Pacific Northwest and Antifa and immigration and stuff. She had done some reporting on a fresh shooting of a federal agent by a trans person in New Hampshire. This person is from Manchester, New Hampshire. Manchester is a very liberal city. It's a small little city, but it's very leftist. And there was another incident of a border patrol or federal agent being shot by a person who was named Blue Zeke. What's their last name here? Um, Well, I forget. I pulled it up. Of course, I pulled it up and now the ads are popping up,
Oh
which I know
yeah.
is everybody's favorite thing. Blue Zeke Daly, a 26-year-old man who had previously been known as Cullen Zeke Daly, was
Mm,
involved in this shooting. It wasn't initially reported that he was trans. Later, Andy and Katie were working on it. They discovered that the person is trans non-binary, which is, this other component of transness.
mhm.
And yeah, and so Andy linked it back to the previous shooting, and I think he's right to do so. We have seen a plethora of trans violence, and this is a community that tells us, we just want to be peaceful and coexist and everything like that. And then you look at it and you're like, I don't think that's really
Yeah.
what's going on here. There's something peculiar. And if you look at just the past few weeks, we have had a trans non binary person shooting a federal agent in New Hampshire. We had a mass shooting by a trans person in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, in Canada, a
Mhm.
very small town of 2,400 people. And this young man shot and killed his mother and his stepbrother before heading over to a school with only 160 kids in it
Yeah.
and took up some shooting there.
Mm,
Then we had a shooting in Rhode Island, a
yeah.
man who his marriage broke up because he decided he was a woman. His marriage broke up and he went to his son's high school hockey game and took up shooting there, killed his ex-wife, killed, I believe it was one of his children.
Yeah. I think it was his daughter.
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, and there was some indication additionally that this was senior day on the ice,
Mm,
and the seniors were going to be bringing their families out on the ice. And perhaps this man was upset that he was not invited by his son out on the ice because it's sort of an embarrassment to have your dad walk out there with fake boobs and bleach blonde hair
yeah.
pretending to be a lady. Like I find that embarrassing as
Mm,
well.
yeah.
I guess live how you want to live, but once you have children, you have an obligation to like show up for them in their life
Yeah.
without being a total disaster.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of trans violence, and that's just the past few
Right.
weeks,
Yeah.
you
Eh,
know?
it's a really it's not a terribly surprising. This is what frustrates me about the conservative commentary is like they can do a really tough guy routine on the transgender thing when it's like there's only two genders, man, and it's like okay, we've moved past that. Let's get to like why this is happening, and this is the thing that no one wants to say, and it's just objectively true is they kill themselves. It's just very unfortunate. It doesn't bring me joy. This is not a dunk. This is a very sad thing. I'm very heartbroken by this whole situation because it's a society-wide failure. They kill themselves at a very high level, so you should not be surprised that they have a higher participation in these sort of violent outbursts. Again, this is just logical. This makes total sense. But a lot of people just want to stick to the sound bites and they don't want to drill down on why this is actually happening. They're mentally disturbed, and then they have a high propensity of self harm. So naturally, that's going to sort of escalate
Yeah.
outwards.
Not only are they mentally disturbed, but no one is trying to help them be not mentally disturbed.
Yes.
So you have a situation where, someone says that they actually believe themselves to be the opposite sex, which is a lie. And then you have a bunch of people being like, yeah, your lie is truth. Yeah, your lie is totally true. Go out in the world
Yeah.
and speak your truth. That's truth. And then you go out in the world as this trans person, and some people for sure pass, definitely. But you go out into the world as this person. If you want to take this Rhode Island guy, for example, there is no reality in which he looks like a lady.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
he's this big New England guy. He's this
Yeah.
big Rhode Island, like, what is he, like 6'4"?
Yeah.
And he's like all muscly and stuff. He does
Yeah.
not look like a lady.
Yeah.
And you get the sense like he's not gay. It's like
Right.
some weird fetish thing for a lot of people.
Mm.
And I agree with you about being totally heartbroken. Like every time I see one of these trans shooters who's a teenager or a very young person, like late teens, early 20s or younger, I find it so heartbreaking, surely for all of the victims whose lives are lost and whose lives are ruined by this person.
Yeah.
But I also feel such heartbreak for this kid who's probably like just some weird kid, and someone needs to give them some good music and take them out to a party,
Yeah.
and
That's fair.
like get over it, get out of yourself, don't worry about all this stuff, get off the internet, don't worry, like
Yeah.
Have friends. You don't even need a lot of friends. You really just need one friend
Yeah.
who like will go do fun stuff with you and like drive around with the windows down and listen to loud music, and that will cure a lot of teen angst.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
speaking not speaking from any experience at all, you know?
Well, totally. I mean, because that's obviously the shootings are where tensions really flare, and rightfully so. Because people are just so done with this issue. Because again, there's one side that's continuously propping this up, the other side saying this is crazy. But when you break it down, like when I just see the transgender thing in general, it's I find it heartbreaking. I still have a very like a soft spot for like seeing struggling, like these are kids
Of
oftentimes,
course.
and it's the suicide rate being so sky high is what's so appalling to me. That's why I think it's evil outright to again be accepting of this sort of lifestyle. It's ticked over from a disagreement. This is we're not just disagreeing on something. It is outright evil to endorse a lifestyle that has a very high chance in resulting in your own death. That is just to me
Yeah.
barbaric.
And the thing too is like when you look at the studies, so there was always this stuff, would you rather have a living son, a living daughter or a dead son
Yeah.
or whatever it is,
Hmm.
and they say that. And then there were studies show because they were saying like, okay, your kid's going to kill themselves if you don't let them transition. And then some studies were actually done and it was looked into. People with mental health issues, trans, non-trans, same rates.
Yeah.
So it's not about trans. It's about these mental health things.
Yeah.
And we also have a mental health system. I mean, it gets so deep into the rot that we have here, right? Because once you start getting into mental health, the mental health system is all messed up.
Oh yeah.
They're looking, every problem that you have is a psychological problem. It can be solved with drugs and talking more about your problems.
Hmm.
Problems aren't solved by talking about your problems.
Yeah.
Problems are solved by like getting yourself together, getting some competence, getting some skills, and going out there and feeling good about yourself because you have earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're depressed because you're failing math, you can take some SSRIs and still fail math and you're going to feel terrible. But if you learn how to do the work, you're going to feel good about yourself, and that's going to help you a lot more than drugs or lies. And no one's coming around being like, no, hun, you're not really failing math. That's just an A. Take some drugs. You'll feel better. Like, this is
Yeah.
dumb. This is like such a dumb way to treat kids. And kids feel that it's dumb. So when you have these kids who are like mentally disturbed in part because everybody keeps lying to them,
Yeah.
in part because they have like a messed up home life. And also, nobody tells kids once they're stuck in these like bad home life situations. No one's like, hey, listen, childhood is short. Figure out what you want your life to be like and
Hmm.
move in that direction.
Hmm.
You're not going to be here forever. You're not under your like idiot stepfather's thumb forever. This is short. Like, take what you need, move on. Like, no one
Absolutely.
tells you, no one treats them like they matter.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, like a lot of it is, yeah, like lifestyle adjustments would solve quite a few of these. Because again, you have a kid going into a therapist's office where the whole point of therapy in 2026 is just you argue with a liberal until you just agree with them. Someone put that on Twitter. It's so true. Uh, but they go into and you say, I feel empty inside. And they go, okay, well, here's some pills. And then eventually you'll stop thinking about that. We'll just neuter your brain. On the flip side, there are these kids that are growing up in these really horrible home life situations. Someone made this point. It's a very good point because they're saying JD Vance was probably the last of his generation was the last generation that could grow up in a situation like that and become the vice president, because every kid in that situation following, there's a decent chance that they get into a weird online echo chamber, or they get, again, just isolated in a really strange way. And again, they go down these sort of weird rabbit holes that we're talking about. Again, that's not across the board. You still have exceptions, but it's making it increasingly difficult for kids that grow up in that situation to, again, have a chance out, a pathway out, because
Yeah.
they just get sucked in. It's primarily online is what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to sound like a boomer. My income is because of the internet. So I'm not anti-internet.
We're online
but-
right now, in fact.
Exactly. But it's becoming increasingly obvious that the worst thing for a child that feels atomized is to give them exposure to the internet, because this is going to be mean, but sometimes there's a reason they're atomized. It's because they are a little weird. And so they're going to go
Yeah.
find other kids that are a little weird, and then they're just going to be weird together, and then things get worse and worse. It's just the reality. I mean, again, I feel bad saying that, but it's just true. It's just
Yeah.
objective reality.
And there's got to be room in our society for weird kids. JD
Exactly.
Vance looks like he was a weird kid.
Yeah.
Totally somebody I would have been friends with.
Yeah. It's it's true.
Fat kid rock t-shirt, like, bad hair.
But
That's my
who
kind of
knows
friend.
what a kid like that, like what the incentive structures for him would be if he was born in 2005.
Hmm.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't be occurring to him to go to the Marines. I don't know.
Right.
Again, I like to give people autonomy. I want to treat everybody as individuals, but you do have to look at trends, right? You do have to look at trends, and we are seeing among the youth higher rates of they're reporting higher rates of LGBT, affiliation and whatnot. So it's like things are changing quite rapidly, even from millennials. Like things are changing, and who knows what the next generation is going to look like? But it's going to be very grim.
I think about this too because I often am asked by like, little Republican groups, or like I'll do interviews with people who have like their Republican thing and they're trying to organize this and that. And their whole group is older people, boomers.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do we get the kids involved? How do we get them to come want to be part of what we're doing? And I'm always kind of like, they don't want to be part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to be part of what you're doing except you guys. You have your thing and it's cool for you guys and that's great. I actually had one person tell me, and he was older, he was like older than me, but doing his thing. And he was like, yeah, we have this great project. We just need some young people to come in and be the muscle. And I remember thinking like, why would anyone want to be your muscle?
Right.
Like they want to be muscle for their own project, for their own thing that they're doing. So, you have all of these older people trying to, and it's such a boomer thing, right? Like, come be part of the thing we're doing.
Right.
They don't ever take interest in what you're doing. They don't ever like look at you and ask you what your ideas are or why, or say, like, what is your thought process here? They always want to everyone's always wanting to tell kids what to think instead of like how to think. And all they really need is like how to think, learn to control your own thought process, learn to understand how you think, how to
Mm-hmm.
process ideas, how to not be ruled by ideologies, how
Mm.
to entertain thoughts without embedding them into your consciousness. Like
Mm.
you can think about anything crazy that you want, but that doesn't mean that it's part of you. It's just like, I mean, thoughts are like ephemera, they can come and go. But I think about that in terms of like how to like this divide of like old people want young people to be involved, but they
Yeah.
don't want to make space for those young people to be involved. They just want to like incorporate them into their thing.
Right. Because it gives them
Yeah,
credibility.
it gives them credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something I've been thinking about. This is something somebody literally asked me about yesterday. They were like, can you come talk to our thing and tell us how to get young people involved? And I was like,
Yeah.
that's not like you could give out free donuts. That sometimes helps.
Yeah, it's like not to go completely sidetrack, but it's like churches have this problem all the time where they're like, well, how do we
Mhm.
get the young people in? And they think it's like we need to change the color of paint, so they like modernize the music style or these sorts of things, or make the preaching more topical or these sorts of things. And it's like, no, typically it's you double down on what makes you different, and then
Exactly.
young people that are again feeling a bit disillusioned with the world are going to be attracted to things that feel sort of superhuman, that feel divine, these sorts of things. And so that applies to everything. But I mean, that applies to church primarily because that's again a big part of people's lives. Like the church I go to is very traditional because it's like a refuge again on a Sunday. But this applies to everything else. It's like you have to provide them with something that's different. You should actually double down on what makes you different rather than try to like again repackage it and then maybe you'll trick them and it'll pass the sniff test and then they'll accept it.
Yeah. You have to be your real thing if you want them to show up and want to be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I always
exactly.
think like church events are good,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
during Lent, you have the fish fry.
Yeah.
You have,
That's
like,
super
here's a
Catholic.
bake sale. Like
Fish fry.
just do the thing you're
Yeah.
good at doing
Yeah, no, totally.
and make sure that people hear about it. And maybe they'll come.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And
Well,
maybe they won't just keep looking to be lied to about who they are.
well, speaking about being lied to, I do want to like kind of circle back to the first topic, but from a different angle. You've probably seen this happening as well. Is we've seen a few permission pieces coming out from major outlets like the Washington Post, the New York Times, where they're actually like getting a bit critical of the trans thing. They're actually like sort of saying like, okay, maybe things have gone too far. Maybe this could be an issue, et cetera, et cetera. Then you had Gavin Newsom the other day, kind of out of nowhere, coming out again regarding the gender ideology stuff. And he's like, I don't know, maybe this is maybe politically unviable. Like, I don't know, maybe we should take it easy. He didn't actually say they were wrong. but he did say maybe this won't play in Peoria, and maybe we should consider that if we're trying to win elections. Do you think there's a reckoning happening on the left, or is this just repackaging for an election cycle?
Yeah, I think it's just opportunist. And honestly, it makes me kind of angry to see it. That's as someone who's been like talking about the problem with trans literally since like at least 2013 when I was
Mhm.
writing satire about trans. And I won an offensive theater award because of how offensive my play about that was like a satire of trans and abortion and surrogacy was,
Yeah.
um, and birth control and gang rape.
Mm.
So it was pretty funny. But anyway, I find it infuriating because thousands of children and teens could have been not mutilated
Yes.
if they would not have held up these lies over the past, like, 6 or so years when they really started going in hard on men can be women and trans your kids.
Hmm.
And now they're talking about it. Good, good. Please be critical finally,
Yeah.
but accept some culpability for what you have done.
Yeah.
They don't look at it, right? They come out and they talk about, like, oh, it's important to trans your kids and it's life saving. Do you know what they mean by life saving? And
Mm.
this comes from the ACLU. This comes from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. This comes from Marcia Bowers, who was the surgeon who operated on Jazz Jennings. This
Mm.
comes from the top. This comes from what's his name? The fella who was the Biden guy, whose name I forget.
Um,
Levin, Doc,
oh yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. Was it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rachel?
This comes from
Yeah.
this guy. What was his name? William?
But yeah, his
Stephen?
real name was like
I,
Will or
I,
Steve. Yeah.
some stupid name.
Yeah.
Anyways, this guy, it comes from them. What they mean by life saving is that if they give children drugs and hormones that make them have the secondary sex characteristics of the opposite sex, that by the time those children grow into adults, they will appear more like the opposite sex than their natal sex.
Mm.
And this
Mm.
will help them in adulthood. Life saving is appearance. Life saving is permanent fashion.
Mm.
That's all it is that they're talking. That's what they mean when they say life saving.
Hmm.
That is so stupid and disingenuous and inauthentic from a party that used to tell us you're beautiful just the way you are.
Yeah.
They don't mean it. They are lying to you. And Gavin Newsom, what a prick, right? I
Mm.
mean, what a little opportunistic piece of trash that man is. He will say whatever is expedient at any given time. When he was on with Charlie Kirk last year, when he launched his podcast and he had Charlie on,
Hmm.
and they had such an interesting conversation, and he admitted that perhaps it's not fair to have fellas play women's sports. He got into it. He said that. And now he's just like, well, I didn't say that. And I never said my son was a fan of Charlie Kirk. Well, he did say it. He
Yep.
did say it. He will say whatever he has to, as we saw the other day, where he basically said, hey, stupid black people, I'm stupid too, right? I did badly on my SATs.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you saying this? Like, how are you saying, like, I'm dumb like you, so elect me? Like,
Yeah.
you fool, you clown,
Yeah. He's sounding
So
like
anything,
a Twitter anon. He's like, black people are
yes.
dumb, like trans. Oh, what's the deal with trans people? It's like, whoa. He's like, it's like a Twitter post. He might be my
Yeah.
mutual. I don't know.
He was also saying that he lost his birth certificate when he was 7 and he never figured out how to get it back. He was born in San Francisco. He was the mayor of San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
He went to Munich 2 weeks ago. How did he get his passport? You lost your birth certificate at 7. You need that for your passport. You need
Yeah.
proof of citizenship. If he doesn't have his birth certificate, he must have a copy. Someone must have got it for him. He must have had some like executive assistant somewhere who could have helped him out.
Right.
I will tell you, I lost my birth certificate. I lost my passport. I was able to get both of them back, and it wasn't even difficult.
Yeah.
And he's got more money than me. I paid the expedited fee. I overdrew my bank account when I had to do that. He didn't.
Yeah.
He could just go get it,
Right.
and that's, I was 19.
Mm.
He's what, like 54 something? Like, you
Yeah.
can handle your shit, Gavin.
Yeah.
I do not like that man.
The craziest one to me, besides all this, I mean, these are all egregious, but he was like on Sean Ryan's show, and Sean Ryan gifted him like a handgun, and then he did this thing where he's like, I actually love these. I like want more of them. I just want like more responsible ownership. That's my problem. And then immediately passes like some of the most like draconian Second Amendment restrictions you've ever seen in your entire life. It's like what he is willing to say. That's what makes him almost like Patrick Bateman-esque. I know people like don't want to give that to him, but it is like this just cold, like conniving. Like he will literally just say whatever it takes for someone that's first interaction with them is through that podcast to be like, well, this guy's
Mhm.
kind of sensible. Yeah. Because they're
Mhm.
like, it's just
Yeah, and we can
insane.
expect to see him on the campaign trail in 2028, and
Yeah.
perhaps Kamala Harris, perhaps AOC. These are the people that we are going to be seeing out there. And you're going to have all these Democrats be like, oh, we're going to vote for these people. And I'm not like hardcore Republican. I'm like conservative and Catholic. My
Yeah.
political perspective has pretty much always been I'm Catholic.
Mhm.
So take that for what it is. But we're going to see these guys out there trying to counter all of the legitimately good messaging and policies from the Trump administration. They're going to keep they're going to be like, oh, JD Vance is a Nazi. All these
Yeah.
people are terrible. And we run a risk because they're smooth talking, smooth brained, pretty people.
Yeah, look what they're doing now, where they've made the Epstein files their issue now, and so there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that, I mean, rightfully so, are very frustrated about this. They see this as kind of the litmus test for, the viability of like the current system, and then now the left is like sort of again adopting a lot of these talking points. It was John Ossoff in Georgia, the senator from Georgia, was like, the Republican Party is the party of Epstein class and that sort of thing, and it's like, I see what they're doing here. They're actually trying to capitalize on the kind of populist themes. And now that the Trump administration and the Trump movement, by and large, is positioning themselves as a legitimate ruling, authority in the United States, now the left like sees, okay, there might be some blood in the water. We could sort of position ourselves like the populist. It's just you can't really do that with the coalition that they have. So I do think they'll blow up in their face, and they probably will get like an AOC. But it's interesting to see nonetheless.
Yeah, meanwhile, it's taking down UK labor.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And Norwegian royalty somehow as well.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's the most bizarre. We're seeing a massive reshifting. The UK is insane. It doesn't get
what
nearly
a mess.
talked about in the United States, but like the political zeitgeist, they're simultaneously 10 years behind us, but also 10 years ahead of us in a weird
Mhm.
way. Because
Yeah, we've been covering a lot of that at Human Events with
yeah,
the migration and the
right,
like Muslim stabbing sprees
yeah,
and all of this kind of stuff. There was recently a case in I think it was Ireland where two migrants had not been given good housing, and so they managed to sue the government for like a ton of money for housing. There's 6,000 homeless Irish children.
yeah, yeah.
Like they can't get housing. There's really a confusion in the UK as to who the country belongs to, and it
Mhm.
doesn't appear to belong to the indigenous Britons.
No, right, absolutely. I mean, that's why Rupert Lowe's striking such a nerve right now
Yeah.
with the people, because they're just like, finally, someone that's just saying very obvious things. It is radical because of just what the zeitgeist is right now. But generally, these like are, the men and women the men primarily that fought in World War II would have just saw the policy positions of Restore and be like, yeah, that's like, it was at a centrist party. So
Right.
it's hilarious
Right.
that this is the situation we're in. But I guess to close, to sort of put a bow on the earlier topic, let's just say the Democrat Party continues to slowly try to walk back the trans issue, or at least make it not a
Mhm.
thing. They don't have an explanation to these people that have mutilated themselves because they wanted to participate and be happy. Without an explanation for those people, what do you think those people are going to do after the ladder gets pulled up behind them?
Well, the people who are upset about it have an avenue to sue for malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Fox Varian in New York. I think she got $2 million.
Mm.
Prisha Mosley is suing. Chloe Cole's case is coming up against Kaiser. And I think that what's going to happen is these insurance companies are going to stop paying for
Mm.
this kind of treatment. This is
Mm-hmm.
my hope, is that they stop paying for this kind of treatment because it's just not something they can afford. And I sincerely hope that that's what happens. We have
Mm-hmm.
seen gender clinics shutting down across the country. Vanderbilt, which Matt Walsh famously went against. We've seen shutdowns in, I think, Chicago, Milwaukee, and also some of the hospitals in California. But what is going to happen to these detransitioners, and what is going to happen when they are, they're sort of out in the cold? And what's going to happen to the people who have undergone all the trans stuff when society suddenly decides that they're not going to lie to them anymore? They're not going to call the 6'5" guy with, whatever he's got going on. They're not going to call him ma'am.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. What happens when all of that shifts? you can't put your, I think what we have is a values issue. And as as individuals, we are responsible for ourselves. We cannot sit around and just expect society to pick up all of the pieces or to maintain a static value system, right?
Mhm.
That's on us. We have to make those decisions ourselves. And I feel a lot of sadness for the people who have undergone this and regret it, but the left has been ignoring them anyway. They tell them they
Yeah.
were never really trans.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, no one is really trans. People make decisions,
Yeah.
but you're never born in the wrong body. God doesn't make those kinds of mistakes.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what they literally pushed until 20 years ago was that, yeah, God doesn't make mistakes. You are born as you are. So it's just a very
Mhm.
sad, it's all just very sad. But with that, Libby, we are running out of time. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people,
Anytime, Tate. You can.
it's so fun. I get so excited when you're coming on because I'm like, it's just gonna be not like, because a lot of times when I have guests on, this is inside baseball. I like struggle sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, we
Oh,
have
it's
20,
not easy.
yeah, we have like 15 minutes left and I'm like running out of stuff to ask. And with you, it's just
Sometimes you
like,
have to draw someone out.
yeah, I know. I
And you're
know.
like, come on, come on.
Yeah.
You like to be on TV, right? I mean, isn't that why
Yeah.
you're here?
It's
Come on.
crazy. But with
No,
you, I'm
I
like,
won't, you know me,
I'm
I'll
like,
just talk forever.
yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly. I love
but
it.
people can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. I'm going to be coming up on Pop Culture Crisis today with Brett Dazovic and Phil Labonte, so that will be fun. I'm definitely going to stop in and get some of those Chicken City eggs because I am out of eggs. You can also check out all of my podcasts. We are on episode 5. Episode 6 is dropping next week. It's been a lot of fun. You can go to thepodmillennial.com and find links to anywhere you want to listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Libby. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Well, that was the great Libby Emmons. Great as always. Former slash recurring guest host of the Timcast News live show. So you'll probably be seeing her sometime soon, I imagine. With that, thank you very much for watching. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. Kellen, where can people find you?
Kellen PDL. We'll watch all things Timcast.
Watch all things Timcast, but more importantly, follow Kellen PDL. I mean, Timcast, you follow all these already. Follow Kellen PDL. What's going on with you people? Anyway, we'll be back tonight for Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. Who's the guest tonight?
Surprise. You have to tune in to find out.
Ah, it's a surprise.
There's a whole press release about it.
Oh, interesting. Very intriguing. Well, we got a rock star coming on tonight, I suppose. So with that, X and Instagram, Real Tate Brown, Timcast IRL, 8 p.m. I'll see you guys. Thank you very much for watching.